And on the night of February 13, 2026, in front of a sold-out arena in Milan, Italy, with Simone Biles watching from the stands, Ilia Malinin stepped onto the Olympic ice as the most dominant figure skater on the planet. And then, everything collapsed. Tonight, we're going inside the moment that shocked the entire sports world. Because this isn't just a story about a skater who fell. This is a story about what happens when the weight of the world sits on the shoulders of a 21-year-old, and what it costs to carry it. Stay with me, because the real story isn't what you saw on the scoreboard. Let's go back to the beginning. Because you have to understand who Ilia Malinin actually is to understand why that night hit so differently. His parents, Tatiana Malinina and Roman Skorniakov, were elite figure skaters who competed for Uzbekistan at the Olympic Games. They grew up on blades. They built their lives around the ice. And then they raised a son and coached him themselves from childhood in Northern Virginia. The pressure wasn't just from the public. It lived inside the walls of his own home, inherited, deeply personal, and impossible to outrun. By 2022, he'd done something that skaters for decades had called physically impossible. He landed a fully rotated quadruple axel, a jump so technically brutal, so athletically insane, that the entire figure skating world stopped breathing when he did it. The sport had never seen anything like it. Overnight, a teenager became a legend. So if he could do the impossible at 17, why did he crumble at 21? Fast forward to Milan, 2026. Ilia arrives not just as a favorite, he arrives as a favorite. There's no silver medal conversation, no battle for the podium. Analysts are debating by how many points he'll win. His competitors are fighting for second place. That's how dominant he'd been. The short program only confirmed it. He skated brilliantly, leading the standings by more than 5 points. The math was almost academic at that point. Go out there, skate clean, and the gold is yours. The crown, the legacy, the Olympic chapter every athlete dreams of writing, it was right there. But then, Friday, February 13th. The free skate. He stood at center ice, and something shifted. Later, he would describe it to reporters in a way that was almost impossible to hear without feeling a knot in your chest. He said it felt like all the traumatic moments of my life really just started flooding my head. The years of pressure, the online hatred, the impossible expectations, it all rushed in at once. He said the negative thoughts overwhelmed me. That he felt he had no control. And when the music started, the jumps that had defined his career, the jumps he had landed 10,000 times, began to fail him. First fall. The crowd went silent. Then another fall. The kind of silence that feels worse than any noise. He finished 8th. Off the podium entirely. The man who was supposed to be untouchable, standing on the ice with the weight of the world visible in his eyes, and no medal to show for it. What he did next is the part almost nobody is talking about. 3 days later, Ilia Malinin posted something on Instagram that stopped millions of people mid-scroll. It wasn't a PR statement. It wasn't a carefully worded apology. It was raw, honest, and the kind of vulnerability that most elite athletes are trained their entire careers to never show. He wrote, "On the world's biggest stage, those who appear the strongest may still be fighting invisible battles on the inside. Even your happiest memories can end up tainted by the noise. Vile online hatred attacks the mind and fear lures it into the darkness, no matter how hard you try to stay sane through the endless insurmountable pressure. It all builds up as these moments flash before your eyes, resulting in an inevitable crash." He then announced a documentary, coming February 21st, the night of the closing exhibition gala. Now here's where the story takes a turn that honestly gave me chills when I learned about it. Simone Biles, 7 Olympic gold medals, the most celebrated gymnast in American history, was in that arena watching Ilia fall. and she recognized something in his eyes. Not failure, not weakness. She recognized herself. "I was really worried about how his mental health was going to be," Biles later told reporters. She reached out to him immediately, gave him her number, wrote him what she described as bullet points of support from one athlete to another, so he knew he wasn't alone. The two met in Milan days later. "It was really heartbreaking," she said. But she also understood exactly what he needed to hear, because she had lived it herself. The closing exhibition gala. The night where Olympians skate for no score. No judges. No medal on the line. Just the ice, the music, and whatever truth you're willing to share. Ilia Malinin skated to tell his story. He landed his signature backflip, a move that had been banned from competition for nearly 5 decades. And when he landed it, when the crowd erupted, something broke open in him. He became visibly emotional, not from winning a medal, but from surviving the week, from showing up anyway, from turning heartbreak into something that made thousands of people in that arena put their hands over their hearts. A George Mason University student who had balanced classes with Olympic-level training, who had carried the impossible expectations of a sport and a nation, who had fallen in front of the whole world, had chosen to get back up. Not quietly, not hiding, but publicly, powerfully, and on his own terms. There's a version of this story where we just talk about what went wrong, where we dissect the jumps, analyze the technique, debate whether he choked under pressure. But that's not actually what happened in Milan. What happened was a young man learned, in real time, in front of billions, that being the best in the world doesn't make you bulletproof. That mental health doesn't care about your rankings or your resume. That the invisible battles are often the hardest ones to fight. And then he stood on that ice one final time and showed everyone exactly who he is. The quad god didn't win the gold medal in Milan, but I'd argue he left that city with something more valuable, a story that will matter long after the scores are forgotten. If this resonated with you, hit subscribe, because we're going to keep covering the stories behind the stories, the ones that actually change how you see the world of sports. And leave a comment below. Do you think Ilia will be back at the next Olympics? Because I have a feeling this chapter is just beginning.